Hello, this is Christy from 52 Hider 3D with the second part of the tracking tutorials. In the previous part, in the first part, we went over how to do planar tracking, and this week, or this time, we're going to go over how to do camera tracking. Now, camera tracking and planar tracking are actually quite different things, whereas plane tracking sort of just deforms a plane, a 2D plane, to fit with what you've tracked. Camera tracking actually tracks the physical camera movement in your video and mimics it on the 3D camera. So although they are quite different, a lot of the principles are the same. So if you haven't already watched the first tutorial, I strongly recommend you go and do that now, because most of the things about placing tracking markers and obviously actually shooting the video are the same. So if you haven't watched that, I suggest you go ahead and watch that now. If not, let's flip over to motion tracking and bring in our footage. I've got a new clip for this one. Where are we? Here we go. Tracking, camera tracking, this one. Okay. So this is just something I went out and shot yesterday. So let's just change our render settings to make sure they're the same as the where are we? So this is in 720p and at 50 frames a second. So we can get rid of that again. And then if we go down to footage information, it says we've got 1780 frames. So put the enter there. Whoa. Okay. Now there's quite a lot of this data, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to prefetch it all. So I'll just go to Preferences, System. I don't actually want to have this much RAM available to it because it tends to overload it, so I'm just going to go with 4 gig. 4 times 1024. Okay. And let's see if this will. Let's open the task manager first just to check what we're doing. Let's prefetch all this by pressing P. See, the amount of RAM we're using is climbing rather high, and I think that's all it can do because we've run out of RAM space. So as you can see, there's quite a lot of movement in this. It's not the best quality video actually. I would have liked to have had better, but this is what we've come up with. So let's choose a particular segment we want to track. Let's choose from 1 to 100. To 1650. Okay, and then we can just prefetch that particular section. Or maybe we can't because it's done it already, but we can just play through it and load it into the cache. And I'm sorry if this is a bit repetitive, but it needs to be done. Right. So, when you're doing camera tracking, you want quite a few markers. You need a minimum of 8, but the real thing you need is accuracy. So it's better to have fewer, more accurate markers than more, less accurate ones. So, and they also have to be spread out throughout the scene quite well. There's no good having them all bunched in one place, or it won't be able to get the data from it. So let's go over to the tracking settings here, and because we're doing quite a lot of footage here, we're probably going to need to change the match type from keyframe to previous frame. That'll make it slightly less accurate, but it will keep the track better. So let's find, again, a good contrast point that you can see throughout the video. Let's try this one. And scale up a bit. And then when we're ready, press Ctrl T. But first we want to change the speed to real time, just so we can see what's going on. I don't know if it actually gives you a better track, but I like to be able to see what it's doing anyway. Okay, so there you can see it's got a very accurate track. It's locked to exactly the right position all the way through the video. So let's go back and start and find another one. As I said, we need a minimum of 8 tracking markers, and it's a good idea to have one to be about the center of your scene, so that you can tell that one to be the origin point. That'll become a bit more apparent later on. There's another good one. Let's manage to track that quite accurately. So always go back to the beginning before placing another tracking marker, otherwise things get very confusing. And this one here. Is that going to work? You can try. Yeah, that was good as well. And we can start looking a bit further afield as well. There's one nice white spot there. It's good to have a good, you want some in the foreground, some in the background. And obviously, just to, if this isn't completely stating the obvious, you don't want to have it tracking anything that's moving, like that bulldozer. So otherwise the camera would get extremely confused. I don't think this dumper truck's moving though, so we can track its orange beacon. Yeah, except it goes off camera, so we can't. That's a pity, that was a really good track too. So delete that one, obviously it won't work. What about this bit here? And it doesn't matter if it actually goes off the edge at some point, so long as it stays accurate. So let's just have a look through that, because I don't think that was a very accurate track. Let's lock it so we can actually stays in the middle. Yeah, you see it at the end there, it just went slightly woggly. Okay, so because it's just about to disappear anyway, we can get it to the sort of the last frame where it was accurate, and then go down here and choose clear after, and then you see it just stops there and won't mess up the tracking. How many have we got now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Need some more over here, I think. You really do notice the stopped. Lost the track just there. You really do notice the difference between good footage for tracking and bad footage, because this is quite good footage and the tracking markers are just tracking all the way through. But if you had bad footage, they would start jumping around and you'd have to do a lot more sort of manually tracking. And you see it's lost it there, but it's not a major problem because where is it anyway? Oh, I see, it's gone over there. So let's just move that over there manually and start tracking it. Oh, it's lost it. There we go. And you can use Alt and the arrow keys to just track one particular frame. And it's not actually tracking very well now. If you had bad tracking footage, you just get this so much more. There we go, and that's tracked all the way. Let's just run through this just to check that it's got a good lock on it and it's not bumping all over the place. Yeah, that's pretty good. And we've got now 6, so we need 2 more. Let's try that point there. Don't think this will have a problem, apart from the fact that it goes off camera, which is a bit irritating. But we can actually get it back again. So because it's come back onto the camera, we can move that there. Where was it tracking to? About a third of the way up. So we can move that to there and start tracking again. Probably give it a bit of space first, off the edge. There we go. And it's stopped again. Probably not the best place to try a tracking marker. Let's try one a bit further over here. Let that track. Is that barbed wire going to get in the way? No, that's fine. And one here. And that worked absolutely fine. We still need a couple more, I think, for it to get a good track. Because quite a lot of these are just going off the edge, and which makes them not very good. One more. Let's have one right over here. Okay. So now we've got all those tracking markers, we can start, and they've all tracked nicely and accurately. We can start doing the camera solving. So we've got 2 keyframes, and this is just sort of from where it takes most of its data from. I don't really understand it, but you need to have both of them where there are 8 tracks, and preferably with quite a lot of difference between the 2 keyframes. So maybe to have number 1 at 1350, like that, and the other one at 1450. Okay. And now this is something that is slightly complicated. If you need to set what camera you use to take the video. So, or you can set it manually, but you need to know the sensor width and preferably the focal length of your camera. The focal length is sort of the zoom, and if you look in your camera's manual, it should tell you what the sensor width and the focal length are. If, like me, you have a camera on this list of presets, it can be really handy. So I'm going to choose my Canon 600D, and it tells me it has a sensor width of 22.3. But because Canon 600D has an interchangeable lens, I need to select the focal length. And I know I took this at around 34mm. But because of course it can zoom in and out, I don't know exactly what the focal length was. So when we go to solve, now we've got this set, we can go over to the solve panel, and because I don't know exactly what that focal length value was, I'm going to choose in the refine box focal length and K1. And K1 is to do with the lens distortion, which is extremely complicated and I don't understand it, but apparently if you set the refine to focal length and K1 it gets a better track or something. Anyway, now we've done that, we should be able to press solve camera motion, or press Shift and S, and it should solve. And that was not good. We've got a solve error of 75, which is not good at all. So let's see which one has got the biggest solve error. So if we go over to here and choose names and statuses, and that's a bit bizarre because I don't see why we've got such a bad solve error there. Let's turn off the refine, so refine nothing. Press Shift and S. And that's got worse. Let's change this to 33. Ah, that's funny. That's a better solve error. It's gone down now to 0.2. So obviously if you get a solve error problem, because anything above 1 is not good. You want a solve error of less than 1. You just play around with the focal length. So now if we go to refine focal length and K1 and press Shift S again, hopefully, yeah, and it's saying that my focal length was probably 34.366. Now I didn't know that, but it can work it out from all the data. So now we've got a solve error within acceptable parameters. Let's save this before it crashes on us, which with tracking it can do quite a lot because it's using one heck of a lot of computing power. Where is it? There we go. Okay, so if we split this view now, and we can bring up the 3D view, and also split it again and bring up the properties, so we've got a bit of a better idea of what's going on. We can now go to this camera, go to the constraints panel, add object constraint and choose camera solver. And you can see now it's brought up all these little tracking markers, which when you select them in 3D view are automatically selected on the video. So we can now select a tracking marker that you want to be around the center, which is probably that one, and that's good. But you could try another one. It's good to have an origin point that's got a low solve error. So let's try this one, this should be fine. And go to Reconstruction and click Set Origin. And it is now, if you go into wireframe view, you can see put that tracking marker exactly in the position you want it to be in. So if we play through this, you can see the camera now moves in a very similar way, or indeed an exactly similar way, to the physical camera did when you shot the video. Now this is useful how exactly? Well, we can now add 3D elements into this 2D scene and not have to worry about the fact the camera's moving. So before we do that, we need to just get this in sort of the right orientation, because you can see all those aren't flat on the floor. And we choose this, a tracking marker that you want it to be on a certain axis. So if that's the origin, we want probably that one to be the x-axis. So go Reconstruction, Set X-axis. Does that come up with anything good? No, that didn't work very well. So let's try a different one. Which one's the origin? That one. So let's try that one setting Y-axis. And we're still a bit off, isn't it? Why is it not liking that? Well, let's try another way, which is to set a floor. So if we select 3 tracking markers that we know are on the sort of the ground plane, choose Reconstruction and Set Floor. And that's come up. That's better. So now if we go to here and turn on background images, add image, movie clip, and it'll automatically select camera clip for us. You can see the tracking has rather well tracked to the movement, so it looks like that cube is stuck in the video rather than just floating. So now we've got that nicely set up, which that was quite good actually. It's not usually doesn't usually work quite that well. We can now go over to here and choose Set Up Tracking Scene, and it will do a few things, and we can now get rid of that and actually just go back to default. And there are a few things it's done here. One, it's set up this plane, which is sort of now going to be the ground. It has created 2 render layers. Where is it? Here. Foreground and background. And basically the foreground is anything you want to add to the scene. So let's say this cube, and you see it's on the foreground layer. On the background layer, you have anything that is already there. So in this case, the ground. So we can see this isn't in the terribly best place because it's off to one side. So let's press G to grab and Shift Z so that it doesn't try and move the floor anywhere ridiculous. So there it is, and we can rotate it like that. And then if we move the cube up so it's on the actually on the on the floor like that. It's not looking too bad, and that's quite well stuck to the floor. Okay, so what this has also done, how long have we been going? Nearly half an hour, so not good, has created a node chain in the render layer panel. Now I don't usually like using preset node chains because I can't understand them, and I can't understand this one, but it works brilliantly. So I'll show you what this has actually done. If you press F12 to render this, I'll turn down the quality so it doesn't take forever, and let's render this. You can see it's created the cube and it's created the plane, and it's put the cube on top of the video and has created a shadow for the cube. So you can, if you move the light, it will move the shadow, obviously, because it is actually a properly rendered shadow, it isn't just faked. So let's choose a sun, and the sun was about like that when I shot the video, and probably wasn't that strong, so change it to 0.7. Render this now, and you can see the shadow has decreased and is much more like the rest of the shadows. So you can now, if you play through this, you could see that the cube will track perfectly to the video, and you can replace that cube with whatever you want. So you can make an entire 3D scene just to sit in front of this video and on this video. So that's kind of camera tracking in a nutshell. Again, there's one thing I cannot stress enough, which is accurate tracking markers. If you have ones that slide all over the place, get rid of them or fix them. Don't just ignore them. Also, the best way to get good results is to get good footage. Until I started getting good quality footage, my tracks were ridiculous, and I had solve errors of over 1,000 and cameras that floated upside down and bounced around. It was pretty frustrating, and yeah, I wouldn't wish that on anyone really. So if you're not sure about how to get good video, go back and watch my previous video which tells you how to take good video for tracking, and that was part 1 of the tracking tutorial. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed and found this useful. You can, if you haven't already, subscribe to me on this page. You can, what can you do? You can +1 me or follow me on Google+. You can follow me on Twitter. You can like my page on Facebook. You can leave a comment below this video. If you have any questions, you can leave those. You can tweet me at 52hider3d. You can leave them below this video. You could post a thingy what's it on Facebook. I don't know how you do it on Google+, but you probably can. So thanks for watching. Do one or all of those things, and goodbye.